Hansi Flick has been transforming Barcelona. The team, once known for the famous tiki-taka style, now plays a highly vertical game under the command of the German coach. With different roles for the two fullbacks and varied tasks for the wingers, Flick creates an asymmetry between the right and left sides. Furthermore, the playing style of the former Bayern coach has been transforming a Brazilian player who is gaining prominence and more freedom at Barcelona. These are some of the concepts we will discuss in this video. Here, we will talk about some tactical principles that the German coach has been applying, which you might notice the next time you watch a Barcelona match. So, stay until the end of this video, because now we will illustrate how Hansi Flick's Barcelona plays. The base system of Barcelona is the 4-3-3, and we can consider two main lineup possibilities at the moment. The first is with Ferran Torres on the left wing and Rafinha as the right midfielder. The second option is with Rafinha shifted to the left wing and Dani Olmo taking up the right midfield position. The more defensive midfielder can also alternate between Casado and Bernal. However, the tactical roles of the players in each position remain quite similar, regardless of the lineup chosen. Thinking about Barcelona's offensive play, we can start with the team's movements and concepts, imagining the positioning in a 2-3-2-3 formation, which is very similar to the structure of the 4-3-3. Here, for example, a snapshot at the beginning of the second half of the game against Real Valladolid clearly shows Barcelona's 2-3-2-3 shape. Apparently, one of Hansi Flick's key principles at Barcelona has been creating overloads in the central area of the pitch, achieved through a numerical advantage in midfield. This numerical advantage opens up the possibility, for example, of using a third-man dynamic, which we explained in more detail in the video on rotations. It basically works by getting the ball to a player who can facilitate passing to another player who is free, but initially inaccessible. But before exploring this kind of maneuver, you first need to create the overloads. So how does the team create these overloads using this 2-3-2-3 positioning? First, the two center backs are responsible for starting the build-up play from the back, while the deeper-lying midfielder positions himself behind the opponent's first line of pressure. The fullbacks have slightly different roles. Balde has more freedom to advance down the left flank than Koundé does on the right. This is due to the wingers' different movements, which we'll discuss in a moment. The midfielders position themselves behind the opposition's midfield line, and Lewandowski, the center forward, can drift into this region in front of the defensive line. We just mentioned that the wingers have different roles, right? On the right side, Yamal tends to stay wider most of the time, while the left winger, usually Rafinha or Ferran Torres, can move into more central areas, overloading the left half space. When this happens, Pedri can drop out from behind the midfield line to play in front of it. This movement, of course, can create space for Balde to advance. On the right side, there is also the possibility of Koundé or Yamal moving into the right half space. In any case, these movements create that central overload on the field. In addition, Lewandowski's movements help open up spaces behind the defensive line for his teammates to make runs, especially the left winger at times, and the right midfielder at others. Barcelona's average positioning against Valencia looked like this. Against Athletic Bilbao, it was like this. And against Rayo Vallecano, you can notice that Lewandowski dropped much deeper than in other matches, while Rafinha looked to attack the spaces more aggressively. In the thrashing against Real Valladolid, we can see the same pattern. The same applies to the victory over Girona. The center-backs frequently attempt to link up directly with players positioned between the opponent's lines of defense. One possible outcome of such a play is using a third-man dynamic, where one of the midfielders receives the ball facing forward and has the freedom to make a pass behind the defense, aiming for the run of one of the players attacking the space, primarily Rafinha. In addition to these runs behind the defense, the holding midfielder can opt for a play in the space between the lines, using one of the midfielders, the left winger coming inside, or the center forward. A great example of Barcelona exploiting these principles happened in this play against Athletic Bilbao. Cubarsí has the ball here in the build-up phase and will pass it to Rafinha, who serves as a support and finds Bernal, who is free behind the first line of pressure. Bernal, facing the attack, will pass to Lewandowski in the space between the lines, who then finds Rafinha free behind Bilbao's midfield line. Rafinha, also receiving the ball while facing forward, will use Ferran's speed to attack behind the defensive line. However, in this play, Ferran ended up in an offside position. But often, this pass behind the defense can come from the center backs themselves, still in the build-up phase, sometimes even from inside their own penalty area. Even if this forward run does not result in a favorable passing opportunity, it has the potential to draw the defensive line closer to the goal, distancing it from the midfield line and increasing the space between the lines, where the more positional players can receive the ball with more freedom. A large part of Barcelona's plays target the central corridor, but important movements can occur on the flanks. On the left side, the play can develop either through Balde's projection, making overlaps, or through Rafinha's parallel run. Despite being left-footed, Rafinha can reach the left byline, even when he initially operates as a right midfielder. Another significant option is on the right, using Lamine Yamal's talent for individual plays, combined with Koundé's overlapping runs inside. Defensively, Barcelona's main differentiator has been its high pressing. The team's first line of pressure is somewhat different from the norm, with the wingers pressing the opposing center-backs and the center-forward, in this case Lewandowski, marking one of the defensive midfielders alongside the right midfielder, forming a second line. The third line can be seen as a line of four, consisting of the other two midfielders occupying the center, while the fullbacks cover the wider areas. The two center-backs provide deeper coverage as a contingency. If the opponent uses a single player behind the first line of pressure, the center-forward marks this passing option, forming a diamond shape in the midfield. The role of the wingers, in addition to initiating this first line of pressure, is to prevent a pass into the unoccupied wide zones, which are usually occupied by the opponent's fullbacks. This is clearly the vulnerable area of Barcelona's high press, since the central corridor is always well covered, creating intense pressure if the opponent attempts to build through this area. When the ball does enter this wider region, the Barcelona fullback is often at a disadvantage and must decide between stepping up to press and prevent the opponent from dominating play there or delaying the advance, providing more time for the players who were pressing higher up to recover. Throughout this video, you've seen references to various concepts that were introduced along the way. In-depth videos on these concepts are now appearing on the screen. Just click and choose which one you want to watch. A big hug, and see you next time. Cheers.